conversation as keenly as possible. So let's go straight into it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I'd like to know what you think based on what I'll be reading out here. So I'm sure a lot of us already know what's going on concerning the whole alleged coup plot, how the conversation came about, how the government of the day denied it. Bayo Nanaga went on social media to deny it. DHQ also came and said that, oh, the stories you guys are hearing about a particular coup plot is not true. That in fact, it was even signed by the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur. So the DHQ described a publication that went viral that there was a coup attempt by some disgruntled military officers as malicious, aimed at creating unnecessary tension and distrust amongst Nigerians. That was what the DHQ said at the time when we heard about the expose. And it was even, first of all, reported by Sahara reporters. So were the ones who let us know what was happening and how the information came about. So according to a statement which was shared by Bayo Nanaga, again, Bayo Nanaga released a statement on his official X handle and also his Facebook page that the decision to cancel Independence Day on October 1st, 2025 was taken to enable the president attend a strategic bilateral meeting outside the country while allowing the armed forces of Nigeria to sustain momentum in ongoing operations against terrorism, insurgency, and banditry. What does that actually entail? So this is basically what happened. You remember that there was supposed to be like a parade on Independence Day last year? Exactly. Unfortunately, they said, oh, it's going to be low key. It's not going to be something that they would actually allow to be boisterous or ostentatious. And everybody was wondering, like, ever since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu became the president, everything has been conducted low key, low key, low key. Apparently, these disgruntled officers had planned this way before the Independence Day. So that was like a forewarning, a security warning to not be in an open space, like hold a parade or something, not be in an open space to conduct such. That's basically one of the things that happened, right? Now, a couple of persons will say, oh, this is actually interesting, or what does that actually represent? Well, afterwards, we kept on getting updates that, oh, these individuals were being kept on the ground, they were kept somewhere, some persons were going through interrogations. It was even the family members of these officers who have been detained that came on social media to say, please, we need to see our loved ones. They've been kept in detention for so long. We can't see them. They're not given access to lawyers and all whatnot. So obviously, journalists have started asking the Nigerian government that, can you please give us details? Is this actually true? Was there a coup attempt on the president? Like, this is a president who has barely done 4 years for his first term, and already some individuals already planning a coup. I mean, that is serious. What does that actually say? How is it even possible that such an attempt could take place, considering the fact that the presidency, Aso Rock, is meant to be highly fortified? Security is meant to be the number one priority of the government of the day. And if a section or a faction of the military are disgruntled with the government, that it even had to undertake such a reasonable act, then it tells you that there's something fundamentally wrong. The military has said they pledged their allegiance to the Nigerian government and they pledged their allegiance to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let me even say this. When President Bola Tinubu came on board, one of the first things he did was to increase the salaries of the Nigerian army. The foot soldiers, those who were on the field fighting Boko Haram, ISWAP, and all of that, their salaries initially was about 45,000, okay? And they usually get daily allowance. When President Bola Tinubu came on board, they started receiving about almost 100,000. That's 90-something thousand naira. So obviously he increased their salary. So you would wonder what happened and how did it get to the point that in barely 4 years, it's not up to 4 years, there is a coup attempt, an assassination on his life. We even heard before this whole coup situation that the NSA, that is Ribadu, that is NSA, National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu's vehicle was stolen. It was shocking because how could they have stolen the NSA's vehicle? Like, one of his vehicles were stolen, and it wasn't even stolen in the night. It was in broad daylight in one of the quarters where the vehicle was kept. So it spoke about the porosity, about the security in at the hierarchy of the government, the laxity of security at that aspect of the government, and it was worrisome. So when this information came on board, I mean, everybody was rattled. A couple of persons were rattled. You may not like the president, but they were like, what? coup attempt? How? Where? In what regard? Are we saying the military too are also suspicious? They are pretending or giving a false allegiance to the government. So everybody was rattled. Unfortunately, the government of the day, what they did was to dispel it and make it seem like it's not as bad as you guys think. It's not worthy to give it such an attention. Don't blow it out of proportion. The DHQ came and wrote that it's false and malicious. It's not true. Elements who are writing that story want to destabilize the polity. Another arm of the military, one of the what was it, defense or whatever investigating unit, came out to say, oh, they were indeed investigating and all of that. So we were seeing conflicting reports. We're getting reports that indeed something happened, but it is not a coup attempt. That it was disgruntled military officers who failed examinations and who has repeatedly gone through disciplinary measures, that they were the ones being disgruntled, that it was not a coup attempt. Okay, if that was the case, how come you're giving us names of terrorist financiers? How come we're seeing names of soldiers and military men who were actually involved in this? Okay, so how did the president escape this? Sources indicate that immediately that information leaked, what they did was to start tracking those who sponsored this. Let me start off with this. One of the fresh details that emerged from the ongoing investigation into the alleged coup plot to overthrow President Bola Tinubu with security sources indicates that financial trails linked to the aborted plan were traced to accounts associated with former Bayelsa State Governor Timilre Sylva. Operators of the Defense Intelligence Agency, working alongside the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFFC), tracked substantial sums of money allegedly connected to the failed coup attempt to financial accounts linked to Timilre Sylva. According to reports and Daily Sun, Sylva became a focus of investigation after some of the detained military officers reportedly identified him as a major financier of the plot. All right. Now, he had earlier served as a Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, and he's also a prominent figure within the ruling All Progressives Congress. So, apparently, findings were first presented to the president. When his name popped up, everyone was surprised. You know what I mean? Like, how, in what regard? How can Timilre Sylva, somebody who just finished from Buhari's administration as Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, be one of the key financiers to something outrageous as this? I mean, in what way would it seem that the present government has done anything wrong to him? But based on the reports we're getting, the president was informed about Timilre Sylva's financial involvement, and that he too was surprised because it was like, you guys, you know what? I need you to expand your investigation, go and investigate further. I don't just want you mentioning names, and at the end of the day, what you're saying is not what it is. So it may mean that you're falsely indicting someone. So go and investigate. So apparently these officers went and investigated. It prompted the DIA, the NFIU, the EFFC, and all of them went into an extensive review of suspicious transactions. So the officials involved in the inquiry said the combined findings from the DIA, the NFIU, that is the National Financial Intelligence Unit, and EFFC were detailed enough to convince the president that the plot went beyond speculation and amounted to a concrete attempt to subvert constitutional order. It was also confirmed that several officers, including a brigadier general, colonels, lieutenant colonels, and a captain, had confessed to their roles in the plot. They allegedly revealed that they were conscripted into the plan, which involved using drones and advanced technology rather than heavy troop deployment. Sylva was said to be aggrieved over his exclusion from the Tinubu administration and was accused of engaging in illegal bunkering and other illicit operations in the Niger Delta. Months ago, military sources suggested that the identities of the officers involved will be made public in the coming weeks. Now, what are the identities of these officers who were involved in this alleged coup d'etat that was meant to overthrow the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Their names are Brigadier General Musa Abubakar Sadiq, alleged to be the leader of the plot, Colonel M.A. Ma'aji, Lieutenant Colonel S. Bapa A.A. Hayatu P. Dangnap and M. Almakura, Majors A.J. Ibrahim, M.M. Jida, M.A. Usman, D. Yusuf, and I. Dawuda, Captains Ibrahim Bello and A.A. Yusuf, Lieutenant S.S. Felix, alright, Lieutenant Commander D.B. Abdullahi of the Nigerian Navy, Squadron Leader S.B. Adamu of the Nigerian Air Force. Some of the officers actually were facing disciplinary or operational controversies. They were under disciplinary observations. These were the officers that were allegedly involved in this coup d'etat. Okay, so let's continue. Like I said, these are interesting times, and one would wonder what could have facilitated something as this was very dangerous and it was a very sensitive mission. We heard that they were supposed to take out the National Security Advisor. They were also supposed to take out the president's son. These were the details that were given. They were also supposed to take the what's his name, chief of staff to the president, that's Femi Gbajabiamila. There were talks as well that they were also meant to take the CBN governor, Olayemi Cardoso, as well as the Minister of Finance, Wale Edu. These were top persons that were being monitored, followed up into the kitchen of these individuals and private details. They were monitoring their movement, their details. Somebody inside was giving them information about the movement of these individuals, where they were going, what they were doing, how many persons were their security aid and their ADCs as their aid camp. Like up to date information was given about those guys. So this is basically what the information we got. A couple of you would now ask yourself, could that be the reason why the president always travels out of the country? Like you wonder, why does Tinubu not stay in Asarok? Where does he always go to? Why does he find the need to always have to step out of the country? If he's not coming to Lagos, he's going to France. If he's not going to France, he's going to Dubai. If he's not going to Dubai, he's basically going to Abu Dhabi or, Qatar. Just one of those countries. Like currently right now, he has traveled to Turkey. So we were wondering, where does the president always go and why does he feel hesitant to stay in Asarok and govern? A couple of persons attributed it to, the president is trying to market Nigeria, right? Bring in international transactions, bring in investment. A couple of persons see it as a president traveling to treat himself, but using official engagements as a cover-up. And obviously, these things involve money, right? Taxpayers' money. So they need to defend the money used to take care of the president in these foreign trips, his hotel, his feeding, everything, his security detail, everything about the president needs to be defended. So there are talks that they just bring up official functions that will supposedly officially give credibility to the president's travel to some of these locations. Anyway, the thing is, thank God it did not happen, right? So the question now was, why did the government of the day deny that such a thing ever took place? That's one. Two, why was everywhere quiet? Like, I was so shocked. The data boys, that is the data boys of the APC and the President Trump's persons were all mute. It was like they were afraid to call out the fact that it was a supposed northern coup, because that's basically how you could term it. All the names here are northern names. Nobody from the southeast or the southwest. They're all northern names. And a couple of persons said, well, with the rate at which tribalism has pervaded the polity, every conversation is viewed within the prism and lens of tribalism. They were like, oh, it's because there was no Igbo name there. Imagine if there was an Igbo name by mistake. Let's just say the person is someone that was conscripted to the northern region and is an Igbo person. It is that one Igbo soldier that they will pick on, and before you know, the Yorubas will start saying, oh, whatnot, or the data boys. I don't like to generalize, because I feel those who spread tribalism and hate are basically the data boys. So they use the tribe as a cover-up to be like, my tribe's men, my tribe's people, my tribe's people. It's because our person is there. When Buhari was there, his people, his region protected him. So no matter the flaws of this current government, no matter the flaws of the president, let's chastise him privately, but publicly we must defend him. He belongs to us, he's from our tribe and all whatnot. So obviously it's not surprising to see such narratives, go across the timeline. But everywhere was quiet. Nobody said anything. There was no protest. Nobody called anyone out. They didn't even start victimizing the Northerners on social media by saying, oh, you Northerners want power by all means. Say, all kept mute. And we were wondering, everybody was shocked that the APC data boys could keep quiet. Do you know what it is that there is an overthrow? Some people sat down to think of overthrowing your government. That hasn't happened in a very long time. Even in in Jonathan's administration, that a lot of persons felt he was lax, he was not a thoroughbred leader, or he did not have the spine to handle those guys. We did not hear that there were certain elements. So literally, we didn't hear that in Jonathan's 5 years as president. We didn't hear that, especially with how bad things got towards the end of his tenure with the abduction of over 200 girls, abduction of 200 cheaper girls, and the whole American government being involved, denying the Jonathan government arms and ammunition to see how they could fight these guys. We never heard about these guys planning a coup in whatever formation against the government of the day. So it was surprising that certain persons kept quiet while this whole thing happened. They did not berate the government, they did not berate the security apparatus, because it meant that the security structure was lax and weak for such a thing to have been thought about, that they did not even know that these individuals even had gotten into the high ranked hierarchy of these individuals: the president, the vice president, the national security advisor, the CBN governor, the minister of finance, the chief of staff to the president. These persons had gotten so close that it took, God knows, it took, I think, then the minister, not the minister of defense, the chief of defense staff, who is now the minister of defense. I think they were the ones who actually decided to let it out. So why does the government like to hide stuff like this? And why is there selectivism in terms of outrage when it comes to certain things like this? Because it was like everywhere was quiet. Some certain persons did not want to raise alarm, did not want to say anything, because these persons were from the north. A couple of persons attributed this whole thing to be because the Southwest needs the North's political alliance. They do not want to heat up the polity or make them start fighting back, not necessarily physically, but by saying we're not going to give you guys any form of support. So they need to pet them supposedly and keep quiet up until 2027. Then there are talks that by 2027, if Tinubu gets to come back the second time, that he will now show his true color. I don't know what true color he wants to show, because I'm obviously, I feel like as a leader, your first 4 years are a major determinant to your success. They're a prerequisite to your re-election campaign. How people feel during the first 4 years of your tenure determines how they would feel and speak about you during your time to run again the second time. So if your first tenure is there are complaints about division in the polity, there's hunger in the land, there is economic stifling and economic strangulation, there's a lot of tax involved, a lot of things that you had said during your campaign season is not what has been experienced. Okay, you can imagine this year we've had 2 national grid collapses for this year, 2026. January is not even complete. We heard of a grid collapse, I think, today again. So it's worrisome to understand the dynamic at play with the government. When you can apparently see what is wrong, you can see the porosities, and rather than address it and assure Nigerians that you're working assiduously to ensure that things get back to what you promised during your campaign, you're rather looking for propaganda to cover up this information, or means through which you can sidestep or distract people from focusing on the failures of your administration. But hey, they say it's the first time of the president. He inherited an almost non-existent administration. So let's give him time. Let's try to understand where the president is coming from. Let's show a little bit of, would I say, remorse. Let's not necessarily remorse, acceptance to the fact that Rome was not built in a day. But these were the angles and the aspects to which the president promised he was going to work on. Like I said, there's a lot to actually consider in this. I would implore you to let me know what you think in the comment section. How do you describe the scenario? Like literally, how do you describe this? So what actually happened is this. Sylva, who has been tracked as one of the major financiers of the alleged coup plot, based on confirmation by some of the several officers who have been kept on the ground for a very long time. In fact, last week we heard that 5 of them, 2 of them, amongst the 5 of them that were kept in detention for so long, 2 of them collapsed and the remaining 3 kind of fell sick amongst the 16 officers. So it was very serious, and that was exposed in the press. Obviously, the government of the day needed to facilitate it. There's going to be a military trial. As of yesterday, we got a report that investigations have been concluded. So we are going to go through the military trial, and the right punitive measures will be applied on the erring officers who were involved in the alleged coup d'etat. So, based on what we heard, the plan was to use drones and advanced technology rather than heavy troop deployment, because if you use heavy troop deployment, it will obviously be obvious. Okay, so Sylva was set to be aggrieved because he was excluded from being part of Tinubu's administration. So that amid the ongoing or unfolding investigation, operatives of the Department of State Services carried out a raid on Sylva's residence in Abuja, contrary to earlier claims that the operation was conducted by the military. The raid, sources said, formed part of efforts to gather further intelligence connected to the probe. Sylva has, however, strongly denied any involvement in the alleged coup. He said he was sick, that he traveled out of the country because he was not feeling fine and he needed to go for treatment. His brother confirmed that indeed his house was raided at the time. The brother actually confirmed that his house was raided. And so it was imperative that they, according to the Nigerian military, they needed to seal his home and ensure that no one escapes. The children of Timilre Sylva too complained about them being kept, under lock and key with no explanation as to why they are being locked up in the house. But hey, it's interesting to see how Nigeria's politics works. It always feels like a politics of convenience. I don't know if somebody tipped off to Timilre Sylva and then he traveled out, because it wasn't long he traveled before the whole thing happened. So interestingly, what then happened? So after they confirmed Sylva's residence, because apparently they came to his house, they damaged some things, like it was serious. It was not a joke. They sealed the property. They took his brother to where they kept him, and the brother kept insisting, I do not know anything. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. I don't even know why I'm here. So you guys should please give me an update. And he kept on saying that he doesn't know anything. The brother is not in the house. It was very serious at the time. So based on what happened, based on the release from the NFIU, the EFFC, and the DHQ, Sylva had a long record of democratic participation and loyalty to APC's leadership, insisting that he had no role, direct or indirect, in any plot against Tinubu's administration. The supporters of Timilre Sylva kept on saying that Timilre Sylva had nothing with what transpired. So Sylva's residence sustained damage during the raid, but however, no explanation or warrant was presented by the operatives when they came to Sylva's house, which was what the brother was talking about. And that Sylva and his wife were outside the country at the time, with Sylva said to be undergoing medical checks in the United Kingdom before traveling to Malaysia for a professional engagement. Since then, Sylva has not returned to Nigeria. He's been out of the country. We already know that they're searching for him. So if he comes down to Nigeria, we know what's definitely going to happen. It's not going to be funny. So my question to my beautiful government is, when this thing eventually came up, why was there a straight up denial? Why did you deny that such a thing was taking place? Because you cannot imagine that a government that has barely kicked off is already going through the ordeal of a coup d'etat. How do you explain that to anybody? How do you explain that a government that just began its administration was going through the tenacious ordeal of having to deal with a faction of the military that feel disgruntled? What were your promises to certain individuals that you did not fulfill? And you would have expected some certain persons to have been sacked. Anyway, they were changed. I think the Minister of Defense was changed, Air Force was changed, Chief of Army Staff was also changed. All the top military hierarchy were changed immediately. What about the NSA? How come the NSA wasn't changed? Because a lot of persons felt that he ought to have been changed. For that kind of thing to have happened, you are the National Security Advisor, meaning that intelligence ought to be on your table. You ought to be top-notch about it. You were not the one that revealed that information. It was DHQ that did. How come you're still the National Security Advisor? A couple of persons will say when it comes to security issues like this, you need to be very careful before you explain anything so you don't things are not taken out of context or innocent persons are not indicted. But this brings a major indictment on Tinubu's administration. It brings a major indictment on the security that forms around the president for something like this to have been discussed without even no one knew when the conversation was ongoing, not to even talk of certain persons conscripted to monitor certain things, monitor events, attachment and all. But thank God it did not happen, right? We need to say thank God for that. The question about the administration is, while they are gearing up ahead of 2027, they need to understand that this is a sign to depict that their government has a lot of work to do, and they need to elicit the trust of Nigerians. The earlier they do that, the better for them. Propaganda is not going to resolve anything. I mean, it tells your people can testify when you're doing right. When you're not doing right, the people can tell you. So rather than keep quiet and look for one information or the other to cover it up, admit it and say, you know what, my fellow Nigerians, this government, we're working together to make it better. It's not something that I and a few persons can sustain. We will need your collaborative efforts to ensure that Nigeria works for us. So I am pleading with you to please cooperate with us. Let's work together. And how are you going to elicit the trust of Nigerians? Please be transparent in your dealings. 210 trillion naira missing in NNPC. Nobody is saying anything. Billions of naira unaccounted for. I would have expected the president to have called for an investigation into this. Nothing. Everywhere is quiet. The president is a minister of petroleum resources, and 210 trillion naira is missing from the coffers of the NNPC, and everywhere is mute. No panel was set up to investigate where that money is. Instead, we heard that a certain amount was erased, like pardoned off. In what country do you hear that trillions of naira based that are meant for the people were traced off? They were said to be, okay, you know what? We can just brush this aside. It's not necessary. Why? Where did 210 trillion naira go? Which is more than our budget. Do you know what 210 trillion naira can do for Nigerians right about now? Like literally. Our budget is about 50 something trillion naira. The government is complaining they cannot finance it. And that's why we have a new tax plan. The tax is to tax Nigerians to finance the budget, isn't it? That's basically what the tax is for. But 210 trillion naira unaccounted for is somewhere floating in the air in charge of some individuals, and we are not even hearing anybody bother about it. The National Assembly is not even raising hellfire. The president is mute by not saying anything. So where did the money go? Who are the people in charge of that money? Who are those that are sharing the money? Because if you complain there is no money to finance the 2025 and 2026 budget, that 210 trillion naira is more than enough to finance the budget. So if that money is missing, who should we hold? A money from 2017 thereabout to 2024. 210 trillion. This would have been an opportunity for the president to investigate where this money got missing, track it. Those who siphon the money to their account, they should refund it. Bring the money first before you even start putting them in jail. That will help you finance your budget. I mean, don't you want money to finance your budget? That will finance your budget. That will help with some of the infrastructure of the government, because that's what the government is focusing on. So it tells you what exactly is the priority of the government. What are you fighting corruption, or are you going about a selected fight when it comes to corruption? Okay, if the US had not done what they did, would you have been so determined to eradicate Boko Haram and ISWAP? Would you have kept quiet and in fear while those persons were ravaging communities? The North Central was literally non-existent, gasping for breath. Plateau and Benue literally decimated by those guys. So if the US government had not come in by certain persons' complaint over time, that means the government of the day wouldn't have been decisive in prioritizing this, changing the entire military hierarchy. It took that for the military hierarchy to be changed and the alleged coup d'etat for the government of the day to wake up. Now we are seeing and recording some successes from the Nigerian Air Force that they're decimating the enclaves and camps of those guys. So if the US had not paid any astute attention, or Trump had not done what you consider a mad dog tirade, the government of the day would have kept quiet, and Nigerians would have just been like goat meat in the hands of certain persons. Anyways, I'd like to know what your thoughts are based on what I've been able to highlight. And I would implore you to have your engagements to be quite intellectually edifying while you let us know what you think on what has been highlighted here. Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you another time. Bye for now.